Hey, what's up guys? It's Cypher from cypherpk.com, and today I'm bringing you a video regarding the Nightblade class and racials that work better with certain Nightblade builds. Now I do want to say as a disclaimer that your race does have a small effect on your overall effectiveness depending on what you're trying to accomplish with your character, but even if you have a race that isn't as effective as other races, you can still use some of the strengths that your race provides to the table, and it does not make or break you. There are competitive players who use unorthodox races for certain builds and they still perform extremely well. Really, it comes down to skill, but I do want to make this video just to cover some of the bonuses that certain races have. Today we're going to be going over the Nightblade class, and I'm using the database on deltiasgaming.com regarding racials. These are 1.6 racials, but I also have notes next to me with the updated changes. So shout out to Deltias Gaming for providing this info. His website has a lot of really good information regarding ESO. So here's the thing. Nightblade, there's a few aspects to the Nightblade class. You know, there's Ganking, there's Magicka Nightblade, there's Stamina Nightblade, which can be done with both Magicka and Stamina when it comes to Ganking. There's Tanking. Nightblade is very versatile. It can accomplish a lot of things, but I'm going to focus mainly on vague aspects of the Nightblade class like Magicka, Stamina, and Ganking. That way, because if I get too into detail regarding healing, tanking, and stuff like that, the racials kind of blend in together. It's kind of hard to determine which one is better, and I'm going to focus on just what most people run with as a Magicka or Stamina Nightblade. Now, I'm going to go through all the races initially, and I'm just going to point out some of the bonuses that applies to the Nightblade itself and how you can take advantage of those bonuses. And then I'm going to go through them again and pick out my top 3 from each category. Now, for category wise, we're going to go over, tank, ganking, Magicka, Stamina. So those are the 4 main categories that we're going to go over. So high elf provides increase to your destruction staff scaling. Now the destruction staff talents, all these talents don't really matter whatsoever, because at the end of the day, once you're V14, your skill is going to be level 50. So these extra XP boosts are just a little bit of a bonus, but they're not going to affect you once you're actually in endgame PvP. Now elemental talent, this gives you increased frost, fire, or shock damage. Now this really only helps you out if you're using a Destro Nightblade build where you're using a destruction staff, because that's the only place you're really going to pull elemental effects out of a Nightblade. Now increasing your max magic by 10%. This is big for Magicka Nightblades as well, just because of the fact that your max Magicka determines how many spells you can cast, how much damage those spells do. But that doesn't mean that this won't help a Stamina Nightblade. And I'm going to go back into this because a lot of people say, oh, I'm a high elf, I can't go Stamina. That's not true, because of the fact that you have 2 perfectly viable passives, the Gift of Magnus and the Spell Charge, which increases your Magicka recovery. Now those passives might not help you on your Stamina aspect, but as a Stamina Nightblade, you still use Magicka abilities, and you still rely on your Magicka regen and your max Magicka to cast those abilities. So just because your race doesn't necessarily reflect directly into what you're trying to accomplish, doesn't mean you can't pull aspects of that from your race to help you out. You can still find strengths in some of the racial bonuses that you get, regardless of what race you have, and to apply that into your build. That's the whole purpose. To find your strengths and use them into your build and customize your character to fit those strengths. Now, I'm not going to go through every single racial choice. I'm just going to vaguely go over them. Now, high elf gives you the Magicka regen bonus, elemental damage, and the max Magicka. Now, wood elf, extremely popular for Stamina Nightblades, gives you the stealth detection and increased stealth damage by 10%. That's really going to help for ganks, and it gives you some resistance, increases your max stamina by 3%. That's helpful, and also increases your stamina regeneration by 21%. That's the biggest passive that would also have. Khajiits, also a very popular Nightblade race, and just recently got a decent buff to its stamina regen. It increases your weapon critical. That weapon critical by 6% has also been increased. I believe, I'm not exactly sure what number it is. It might be 10% now or 12%, but that's definitely increased. Increased stealth damage by 10%. That's the same stealthy passive that Wood Elves have. And then increasing your health recovery while in combat by 30%. This was removed, I think, and they gave them a 10% extra stamina regen instead of this. So definitely very useful. Now, Bretons, also popular for Magicka Nightblades, reduces the cost of Magicka spells by 3%, increases spell resist, and increases max Magicka. Not much to go into there. Orcs did get changed. So reduce the sprint cost. That's good for mainly for stamina builds. Increased damage on charge attack by 6%. This was changed to increase 4% increased damage on all melee attacks. So this was replaced. So now it has a bit of a DPS boost when it comes to stamina-based abilities. It also increases your max health and max stamina, which is pretty useful. Red Guard is good for stamina blades as well. It increases, your stamina by 10%, your recovery by 9%, stamina recovery, and it restores a certain amount of stamina every time you light attack an opponent. Ebonheart, Argonian. Now, Argonian is one of the races that I think still needs some help, even with the changes that have happened. You do now restore more Magicka health and stamina from potions, and they also got an increase to their healing received. I think it's from 6% to 10% now. So, but I still think of all the races, Argonian still needs a little bit more help regarding their racials. The fact that a big part of their resource management comes from potions. Potions are on a 45-second cooldown, and I don't think they're as reliable as having just like flat regen. So they definitely do need some help. But that doesn't mean that Argonians are out of the race when it comes to being effective in their own way. Now, Dark Elf is a pretty popular choice, mainly for Magicka Nightblade. It's a good Destro choice just because it has the increased fire damage. It's also a good vampire choice just because of the flame resist. But I want to say this right now regarding the flame resist. A lot of people assume Dark Elf is the way to go just because of the flame resist. You got to understand this flame resist passive has had a long journey from the start till now. When this flame resist passive was first initially in the game, it didn't change. The value of the fire resist hasn't really changed since the beginning, but overall resist values have changed. Back then, resist values were based off of like for example, 2k spell resist is now 20k, so it has that x10 multiplier, right? But they never actually did that multiplier on this passive. Now I don't know if that was intentional or not, but basically what happened is once they've increased the spell resist values, this passive became much less significant. Back then, it was like if you had this passive, you could reduce fire damage from the 50% bonus to 25% bonus just with this passive, and then you can get it even lower with a few fire resist rings. But this passive isn't as strong as it used to be. Arguably, the Breton passive that increases your spell resist gives you more defense from fire than the Dark Elf fire resist passive, and that's a bit of an issue, but that's just how it is right now. It also increases your max Magicka by 3%. And max Magicka and stamina by 6%, so that totals to 9% increase on max Magicka. That's competing with Breton and High Elves with their 10%. Nord also needed some help, and it got some of the help that it needed, but it still kind of has a few, for example, increasing cold resist. That is I would rather see some sort of, different type of mitigation coming from here instead of cold resistance. Maybe just spell resist increase would have been a better choice for Nords just because of their natural tanky capabilities. Cold resistance doesn't really mean much in the PvP scene, and I don't think it means much in the PvE scene as well. They did get a boost though. They have more max health now. It's a 10% max health increase, similar to the Imperial class. Now Imperial is our last class to cover. It's a very, very popular class just because of how versatile it is, and I'll get into that really soon. The main thing about Imperial is it increases your max stamina by 10%, max health by 12%. Red Diamond gives you health back based off of melee attacks. So it's a very simple setup for Imperial, but the fact that it's simple makes it very versatile for both Magicka and stamina and tanky aspects of the Nightblade class. Now let's cover Magicka Nightblade. Let's cover Magicka Nightblade really quickly. I'm going to say it straight off the bat right now. My top picks for Magicka Nightblade is High Elf, Breton, Dark Elf, Wood Elf. And I listed them in order of my preference. I like High Elf the most. I do have a High Elf Nightblade that I'm working on. Breton, and then Dark Elf and Wood Elf I put on the same level. But I'm going to explain really quickly before you guys, start a riot regarding these racial passives. I'm going to explain why I put those there, and I'm going to explain how the other races can still perform really well with the racial passive that they have. You would just have to change up your build to be more custom towards your racial choice. The reason high elf is good and Brand is good, of course, is because of the magic control, the regen, the reduction, the max magicka. That all helps. That increases your damage. Now, dark elf also has the max magicka, which is why it's on the list. But also, it has the Destro capability. So if you're using a Destro Nightblade, it's a very good choice, especially if you're using a fire staff. Now, wood elf. Surprisingly, Wood Elf is here on the list for Magicka Nightblade, even though it seems like it's a stamina-based build. I would also put Redguard on this pace as well. Same thing with Khajiit. Like, they're still up there. I wouldn't say that there's the fall-off between these top 3 that I picked and then the rest is not huge. Maybe with Argonians and Nords, there might be a bigger difference. But with the rest of these racial choices, it's not a huge difference, and I'll tell you why. Now, Wood Elf has the stealthy passive, right, which increases your stealth damage by 10%. Now this applies to even Magicka attacks. So if you go into cloak and you hit someone, you're gonna get that 10% extra damage boost on your magic attacks. Now as a Magicka Nightblade, your weakness is usually gonna be your stamina regen, because that's how, if you run out of stamina, you get CC'd, you can't CC break, you're gonna die. Now Wood Elf Magicka Nightblades don't really have to worry about that as much, just because of their 21% increase to their stamina regen. It's really important. So Wood Elf is on the list because of the passives. Now Khajiit, there's a lot of very successful Magicka Nightblade Khajiits. I'll get into Stamina Nightblade, but Magicka Nightblade Khajiits do work as well, just because of their increase. They have the stealthy passive, which really helps, and they have the extra stamina regen, which is also going to help them in their controlling their stamina and not running out of stamina. Now that doesn't mean that you cannot, pull off Argonian Magicka Nightblade or a Nord Magicka Nightblade. Does not mean that you can't pull it off, because honestly, in the grand scheme of things, racial choice is going to make a small difference, but it's not going to make as huge of a difference as some people might play it out to be. I'm just showing you what my preferences are regarding these things. For Stamina Nightblade, oh, I forgot to mention. I completely forgot to mention, for Magicka Nightblade, Imperial is definitely on the list of top choices. Imperial's on the top choice for both, as I said before, Imperial's the top choice for both Magicka, Stamina, tanks. You can even gank with an Imperial, but it doesn't mean it's the best choice for ganking. The reason why I put Imperial up there, it doesn't mean it's better than all the other races. It just means that it's more versatile, because you benefit from having an increased max health pool and an increased max stamina pool, whether you're a Magicka or a Stamina Nightblade. Now, the other racial, the one that returns, health based off of melee attacks, might not help you if you're a Destro Nightblade, but any Nightblade using dual wield or one-handed shield, even if you're Magicka based, can get some of that health back. So it's really, it's just a versatile class, and you can flip back and forth between Magicka Nightblade and Stamina Nightblade using an Imperial, and that is what I do currently on the live game, which is why it's a very, popular pick among most of the community. Now, for Stamina Nightblades, my top 3 or 4, I'm going to list them. Of course, Imperial. Now, this one is in no particular order, because I know Stamina Nightblades, it's a little more trickier. I don't have as much of a preference. For Magicka Nightblades, High Elves are the way to go, in my opinion. For my builds that I use, I really prefer High Elves. Now, that does not mean the other racial choices aren't as good, but that's just my preference. But when it comes to preference on the Stamina Nightblade, I really can't pick between these 4. Khajiit, Wood Elf, Imperial, Redguard. The reason is they're all kind of like a mixture of each other. Some, perform better than others in certain criteria. Now, Imperial has the best stats when it comes to just overall max stamina, max health, right? And then Wood Elves have the best regen because they have the 21% extra stamina regen. Khajiits and Wood Elf both perform really well when it comes to gank scenarios, just because they have the 10% extra stealth damage. And Redguard is a bit of a mix between the Wood Elf, regen, or the Khajiit regen, and then the max stamina from Imperial. So it has the max stamina, it has the regen, and then its third passive also counts towards regen. Some people don't really like to count that as regen. It's a little less reliable, but if played properly, you can get a lot of stamina back from that third passive. That's the one that gives you stamina based off of your heavy and light attacks, and that adds up to your regen, and it really does help. Now, those were just my top 4. But when it comes to DPS, Orc also performs really well as a Stamina Nightblade, just because of the fact that they have the extra 4% increase to their, physical damage, and then an increase by 6% of their max stamina. So they still perform really well, and it's definitely a racial choice that you could probably go down and still be very successful. Now that I've got that out of the way, there's a few races we didn't cover. For Stamina Nightblades in particular, Some people might be Stamina Nightblade Nords, Argonians, Dark Elves, High Elves, Bretons. You can still pull off a Stamina Nightblade using these racial choices. Now let me just cover High Elf for now, right? As a Stamina Nightblade, you're going to be relying on your cloak, your double take, your relentless focus, mark target, whatever you're using for Magicka. You're using Magicka for utility, right? But that utility is just as important as your offense, because if you run out of Magicka and you can't go into cloak or activate some of the magical skills that you have, you might die. So as a High Elf Nightblade, you can still go down the stamina path and perform well by taking advantage of the fact that you're going to have more Magicka than all the other Stamina Nightblades. You're going to have better magic control than all the other Stamina Nightblades. So you use that advantage, you rely more on your magical utilities, and you take advantage of the fact that you can probably cloak more, cast more Magicka abilities, and maybe incorporate that into your build a little more. Have a little more Magicka utility into your build compared to other Stamina Nightblades who can't afford to cast as many Magicka abilities. Same thing applies to the Nord. Nord's going to be the tankiest of them all just because of the extra health and reduction in damage. So when it comes down to it, all you really have to do is see your racial choices and try to incorporate those into your build if it's worth it. If you feel like it's worth it, if you feel like, okay, this reduction in damage or this increase in regen is gonna be worth incorporating into my build, then you can change your build accordingly so that it synergizes well with your racial choice. Now for ganking, it's pretty simple. Khajiit and Wood Elves are the best two for Nightblade ganking, just because of the fact that they have the stealthy bonus, which is a 10% increase to their overall damage. Now the Wood Elf gankers are going to have more regen than the Khajiit gankers, but the Khajiit gankers are going to have more damage in the long run just because of their extra weapon critical. That's what it comes down to. So as for Nightblade tanks, I don't have that much experience in tanking, but I will say that Imperial and Nords are probably my top 2 picks if I was going to go down that route, just because of their their passives do help tremendously in tanking. So that's all I have for the best Nightblade races. Now there is no number one Nightblade race because everyone has different play styles. Everyone plays differently when it comes to PvP, PvE. It's all a custom. You have to customize your build to your preference. That's what it comes down to. You really have to customize your build to your preference, because if you're not comfortable while you're playing your own build, you're not going to perform well. When I say that High Elf is my favorite pick for Magicka Nightblade, that means it's my favorite pick as in it fits my playstyle. But it might not fit your playstyle. You might perform better with Imperial. Maybe you don't manage your stamina as well. Maybe you need to be a Wood Elf. Maybe you need more healing. Maybe you're a healing Nightblade. You go Argonian for the extra healing. It really just depends on who you are as a player, what your preferences are. I'm just listing this out for you guys, giving you guys my opinion on it and just some general info. And it's up to you to pick what race you want as a Nightblade. So hopefully this video has helped you guys and just giving you some direction in where you're going, especially if you're making a new character, or you're thinking about re-rolling, or if you just want to feel a little better about the racial choice that you made. That's just, that's what this video is for. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. I'm going to make a video for Sorcerers, Dragon Knights, and Templars. This is all going to be released this week. I'm also having builds uploaded this weekend, for all the races and classes that I've been working on. The PTS, of course, nothing is final. The PTS is still changing. The meta is still changing. So I'm going to have more builds updated as we, figure things out. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, make sure you comment below in the comment section. I am live on Twitch right now, but I'm recording this so I can upload it to YouTube later today. So I'll see you guys soon. If you guys want more ESO content, don't forget to subscribe and rate the video. I'll see you guys.